Smile 2. Alright, so the synopsis for this one is: about to embark on a new world tour, global pop sensation Sky Riley begins experiencing increasingly terrifying and inexplainable events. Overwhelmed by the escalating horrors and pressures of fame, she must face her dark past to regain control of her life before it spirals out of control. So, the synopsis is pretty much same as last movie, except for a different character. The smile entity infects somebody, and it feeds on their trauma until they get to the point where it can force its way into their body and make them kill themselves in front of somebody else, so it can pass itself on to somebody else. So that's pretty much the synopsis. That's what I get from that. The director of Smile is Parker Finn. The only other film that he directed was Smile 1. So it's always good for a director to continue his series. If you don't know, Smile came from a short film that he made called Laura Hasn't Slept. The main actress from Laura Hasn't Slept appeared in Smile, the one that killed herself at the beginning. And it's always good for a series to have that continuity from director to director. He knows what happened in the previous film, so he can keep it pushing. The budget for this film was $29 million. The original was $17 million, so not too much of an increase. They probably wanted to keep this budget low so they can make a massive amount of money, because the previous film did really well at the box office. So let's just stop this one from doing good at the box office. So I feel like everything that you got from the first film was pretty much amped up in this film. Instead of having a psychiatrist, we're doing a pop star, and with that, you get different types of settings like concerts and things like that. So you need more bodies to throw at this film. So you get to have a lot more. You have more of these spectacular looking outfits and costumes. That's probably where the budget went also. I feel like all the production value of this film was really well done. The only issue I had with the film was how the entity looked when we finally get to see it in person versus like how it looked in the first film. I felt like there was a regression, but everything else in this film looked pretty good. You had a bigger named actress take on the role, so she probably got paid more for this film than the last actress. So that's where some of the budget probably went. But I mean, I feel like this was an appropriate budget for this film. A good comparison film, I would say, is pretty much like the first film. For better or for worse, it's just like the first film. But not to be lazy, I will also say this is like the very first Nightmare on Elm Street film, or maybe the second one. You know how Freddy feeds on people's fear. He feeds on people's fear in their dreams and stuff like that. Rather than doing that, this entity feeds on the trauma. That's what I would compare it to. What makes this film easy to love? It had a very strong opening. The film begins with a lot of dramatic energy. It was a one-shot. I feel like one-shots are very strong because, you get to follow the characters in real time and the choices they make. So the film starts from where the last film left off. Well, not exactly, but like, I think 6 days from when Joel was infected from the lady from the last film. So he's trying to pass the entity on to somebody else, and there's just a lot of dramatic energy in that scene. Listen, Naomi Scott as Sky Riley is an interesting character to have, going after a pop star this time. So that led to the entity having a very creative way to attack her sanity, because she's surrounded by all these different types of people, and the entity manifests itself through the people that you know most of the time, and some of the people that you don't know. And like I said, the entity reminds me of Freddy Krueger, cut coming up with these creative ways to prey on the victim's sanity. Like one time her choreographers came after her, so that hallway chase scene was pretty awesome. Despite I didn't like how it ended, but also the atmosphere and the music were great. I feel like the tone. I feel like the film uses silence and timing in a very great way. It's always full of suspense when you see the entity walk up to Riley and see it, and you just feel that dread. What makes it hard to love the film is pretty much a rehash of the first film on a higher level. The film breaks no new ground, and I feel like and we don't really learn much about the entity. I mean, we don't really get a real weakness that it has. So I feel like that kind of hurt the story a little bit. And the film is longer than it needs to be. After a while, you get desensitized to the entity's games, because how many times can you have a person go through a lot of things, a lot of supernatural things, just for them to wake up and be fine, and it's just oh snap, the entity's just messing with her. And I feel like that just happened way too many times, and I feel like that can make the audience be like, okay, we already know what's going to happen. She's going to wake up, she's going to be fine, and we've seen this before. And lastly, the ending will be divisive. Like the entire film, the ending mirrors the first film. Take that as you want to, but to a higher degree. Although it does leave the door open for an interesting future for the film series, the film continues to not break any new ground. The entity, I feel, is way too powerful, and it needs to take an L at some point. So my prescription for this film is, what makes it easy to love is a strong opening, great protagonist and actor and actress. The atmosphere is great and the tone is great. And what can make it hard to love is the film is pretty much a rehash of the first film. The film is longer than it needs to be, and the ending couldn't be very divisive. So that's my prescription for you. See you next time.